Hey y'all, it's Alex from You Should Craft, and today I'll show you how to crochet a super simple dishcloth. This uses the linen stitch that we learned yesterday in the Newbie Series. You might also hear it called the moss stitch. If you're like, I'm not sure what you're talking about with the Newbie Series, then you should sign up. I put the link in the description, but basically it's 30 days of how to crochet tutorials and easy beginner patterns. So right now we're on day 10 and we're making this dishcloth. So let's talk about our materials. So in order to crochet this linen stitch dishcloth, you'll need standard notion sew scissors and a tapestry needle for weaving in your ends. And then you'll also need your worsted weight cotton yarn. Again, I'm using Dishy from We Crochet. This purpley color is called mulberry, and this one is called silver. And then I'm also using a J 6mm crochet hook, and using the larger stitch helps it get that kind of like flowy feel that you would want for like a towel. So just giving it a little bit of drape. But all right, let's go get started. All right, so like any of our other stitches that start on a chain, you're going to begin by crocheting, or not crocheting, but you're just going to make a slip knot and insert your hook. And then set up your yarn and hook in whatever way that you found was most comfortable for you. And again, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to crochet 32. So I've finished 32 chains. Make sure you count your starting chains before you start working into them, because having an even number is really important for the way that we set this up. All right, so we are going to be doing a single crochet, but it's a little bit weird. So we are going to skip 3 chains and single crochet into the 4th chain from our hook. And like usual, I'm going to go into the back bump. So here's 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to crochet right here into chain number 4. So again, I'm single crocheting, just like usual. Whoop, like missing my stuff. So there's our first single crochet, and then you're going to chain 1 and we're going to skip the next chain. So here's our next back bump, skip, and we're going to put 1 here. You'll see skip abbreviated as SK in patterns. And in charts, there's not a notation for it. It's just that there won't be anything in that stitch. So I've crocheted another single crochet. I'm chaining 1. I'm skipping 1. And then I'll put my next SC right here. And make sure you keep pulling your yarn out. This will just make it easier for you to crochet. So now I'll chain 1, skip 1, and single crochet in the next stitch or chain. So let's take a quick sec to just see what we've got going on so far. So you can see we have like little holes in our work. But the cool thing about the linen stitch or the moss stitch is that when we go through the next row, we sort of fill in these holes. So don't worry about them too much yet. Just continue to chain 1, skip 1, and single crochet until you reach the end of your chain. So again, that's chain 1, skip 1, single crochet, and for our starting chain, we're going into the back bumps. So chain 1, skip 1, single crochet. So go ahead and finish up that first row, and I'll catch back up with you at our turning chain to show you what to do. So I'm about to put in my very last single crochet of row 1. And if you want to count your stitches, you can just count by 2s, counting each single crochet. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, and 30. So you'll have 2 less than whatever your starting chain was. So now we're going to head into row 2. So again, set up your hook and your yarn. I don't know, I think it's like being camera shy or something, but I always have way more trouble with this when I'm filming myself than when I'm like actually crocheting. But you'll notice that I did 2 chains for my turning chain. So that's different than standard single crochet. And that's because one of these is going to be our like skipping chain. So these ones where we skipped a stitch, that's what that second turning chain is going to count as. So I chained 2 and I turned, and now I'm going to single crochet into each of these little holes. And those are called the chain space. So you're not going into the chain itself. You're going like under it into the space. So let me show you that again. Trying to get my hand out of the way so you can hopefully see. So we're going into that chain space and I'm just single crocheting. And then we're going to continue this row literally the same that we did last time. So I'm single crocheting, and then I chain 1, skip 1, so I'll skip that single crochet from last time, and I'll insert my hook into that chain space and single crochet. So chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in that hole or that chain space. Chain 1, skip 1, single crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, and single crochet. Oops, so that time I accidentally went into the chain. So I want to make sure I'm getting in the space. So chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the space. Chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in that chain space. And so now I just have a couple left. But I'll show you what we're looking like so far. So I find that this always looks a little bit messy at the beginning. Just while your fabric is like, I don't know, figuring out what it wants to be when it grows up. But you can see that texture starting to form. So here's the dishcloth again. And so you can see that once you get going, it ends up looking a lot better. So we're going to continue that chain 1, skip 1, SC for the end of this row. And then I'll catch back up with you to show you row 3, but spoiler alert, it's the same as row 2. So go ahead and pause the video, finish up this row, and I'll show you what to do for the rest. All right, so I just threw down my last single crochet of row 2. So now, just like before, I'm going to do 2 chains, flip or turn my work, and I'm going to repeat the exact same pattern. So I kind of already chained 1, and then I'll skip that single crochet and put an SC into the chain space. And then, I kind of loosened up too much. So chain 1, skip 1, SC in the chain space, chain 1, skip 1, single crochet in the chain space, chain 1, skip 1. All right, so just continue this pattern until you get to row 26, and then that will be the end of your dishcloth. So we'll give you a dishcloth that's about 8 by 8. That depends on your tension, but for dishcloths, it doesn't really matter like exactly what size they are. So go ahead and finish up. Again, we're going to row 26. And then I'll catch back up with you at the end to help you weave in your ends and finish off your project. All right, so I've finished up crocheting my moss stitch or linen stitch dishcloth. Again, it has multiple names. You can use your tape measure. Make sure you start at 0. So mine is pretty much exactly 8 inches wide and a little more than 7 inches tall. Again, for dishcloths, it's not a big deal how big it is, unless you're making a matching set. But usually dishcloths are like 7 by 7 or 8 by 8, just like kind of a handy small size. But anyway, I will trim my yarn. I like to leave about 6 inches for weaving in the ends. You don't have to measure it super closely though. And then I'll pull my hook all the way out and use my tapestry needle to help weave in those ends. So just like before, sometimes I start to weave going down the side. And then you can also go in kind of under or between some of these stitches. For the linen stitch or moss stitch, I find that it's easiest to kind of weave in on a diagonal, just because you have those chain space holes. And then again, if you be careful not to pull it too tight, or you can kind of bunch up your work. But you can undo that pretty easily by just kind of stretching it back. So I'm just going back over that same diagonal I hit before, which creates that extra friction from like all the yarn pieces touching each other. And then that helps me keep my yarn in that spot. So that is almost my entire piece of yarn. So I'm just going to snip it off. And then I still have my starting tail. So go ahead and weave that in as well. But once your ends are woven in, this is your dishcloth. So it has this super cool texture, which is created from just single crochets. We just rotate those SCs and the chains to create this cool texture. So you can make them in lots of different colors, or you can make a set that all matches. It's totally up to you. Dishcloths are really handy to have, and you'll find that a lot of beginner patterns are for things like dishcloths that are just quick, handy, like square, rectangular shaped. So that's why this is the only dishcloth. Just because there's so many cute dishcloth patterns out there. But you'll see some more in my single crochet roundup that'll be coming out in a couple days. But that's it, y'all. So thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the You Should Craft channel and check out the You Should Craft blog and that Newbie series if you're a newer crocheter.